heroes. What's going on? I hope everyone's doing all right today. I have had the lovely experience this past year of introducing a lot of people into Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people into it. And I've DM'd for some time, and a lot of times I make, I'll make games and I'll have new people in there. But ever since I started Project Odyssey, and I've been doing that every month and getting content creators and having them jump in, and a lot of them have never played before. And I've kind of learned, I kind of got like this formulaic approach to introducing someone who's never touched some dice and getting them into just like being involved and wanting to play more of D&D, because Dungeons and Dragons can be a real intimidating. There's a lot. There seems like there's a lot for sure. So it can be real intimidating to see like, oh, there's a whole book. Oh, there's multiple books of rules and for a new player. And I just kind of wanted to go about that a little bit and tell you guys like what I do. If you're new to DMing, and everyone in your group is new to DMing, this is a good way to help everyone ease in or convince those people, or those people that you have convinced into playing the game. And if you're not new to DMing, but you're finding yourself new groups, or you're getting new players in, or your party's growing in some way or another, this is, in my opinion, a great way of getting people in. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe, like, and things like that. It helps a lot with the channel and goes a long way. But let's get into this. So a lot of times what I do, it's real simple. When someone doesn't play the game before, I usually tell them, all right, go make a character. And with content creators, I invested into D&D and Beyond. So D&D and Beyond has a really great, probably if not the best, character creation system that I've run into, especially for new people. Now, this isn't like a plugin or anything for D&D Beyond. I just really like their product. Now I know they're owned by Wizards of the Coast, but I'm definitely not getting paid by them. I think I've used a lot of different applications in the past, or different websites, and this one is the most user-friendly because it goes through it step by step, and that's kind of what I would do anyways. So if you don't have D&D Beyond, I think like the most hands-on thing that you should do with a player is literally help them make their character. Probably talk to them, and I can do a whole nother video about like character creation and what you can do to help people make characters, or if you're new, what you should do to help people make characters. But really what it comes down to is the rule of cool. Just tell them, hey, what do you think sounds cool? What do you think is cool? And then help them optimize it, essentially. And that's the gist of it when it comes to helping someone make character creation. That's the most hands-on part. But with Project Odyssey, I don't even do that. I send them the link to D&D and Beyond, and I'm like, hey, go over there, make a character, and then that's it. I do nothing else. I don't tell them to read a book. I don't tell them to read a book. I don't tell them to do any other homework than to have a character made. And honestly, probably about like 60% of the time, and that's me being nice, they don't even have their character made on the day that we're gonna be streaming together. So but it's still nice. It's still nice that D&D Beyond has such an easy way of doing that. So just have that session 0. Always have that session 0. A lot of times people put session 0 with session 1. I mean, that works too. But I think session 0 is having a day where everyone just meets up to make characters and talks about the world, and maybe they can learn about the lore, is really cool and really good, and can get over. What I like to tell people is this is the hardest part. Making the character is the hardest part when it comes to playing Dungeons and Dragons. So like, because a lot of people get overwhelmed, you drop, especially if you have like a bunch of physical things, you drop down one book. Oh, here's the player's hand guide, and then here's Volo's Guides to Monsters, which has more characters, and then here's Tasha's Brewery, and then here's Xanathar's guide. And it's like there's all this, there's Eberron, and there's so many different books that have so many different things. They're spread out, and they're just like, oh my gosh, what do I choose from? What do I pick from? And in reality, it's okay. That's the hardest part for a player, and that's what I love telling people. And I think you should tell people that too. Is really the hardest part is making your character. After that, you just play the game. So character creation done, said, put it away. Then what I do is I just essentially like wait for session 1 to happen. Maybe I'll send like a message, a text message, or I'll DM them or something like that. And I'll go, hey, session. This is what to expect in my game. And what I personally say is I'll be like, I like to RP, I like to combat. So see a mixture of both. Feel free to play however you want. If you don't want to, and I think this is real important. This is kind of a session 0 thing. But feel free to make sure you tell these players what to expect from your game. Funny enough, this is actually pretty funny. The newer the player is to Dungeons and Dragons, I don't have to tell them anything. There's less information I have to give them. I don't have to tell them any of my homebrews. I don't have to tell them anything but the more experienced a Dungeons and Dragons player is, I then have to relay more and more information. It's actually it's funny. You would think it would be the other way around. And the reason for this is because like whenever they show up for session 1, I teach them as we play. I tell them the nuances when it's kind of like a video game. And I treat it, whenever you boot up a video game, you boot up like Ratchet and Clank, or you boot up, those games that are kind of meta in a way. And you're about to do an interaction, or you're about to step into the open world, and then this text box appears, and it's like, whoop, or like there's someone that talks to you. You have an NPC that talks to you. It's like, oh, when out here in the open world, you're able to do this, this, and that. Make sure you interact with vendors in this way. Yeah, that's kind of what I do. I do not dump every single bit of information on them. I'm not just like, all right, this is open world. You're able to do this, that in open world. All right, this is combat. This is this in combat. All right, this is how this is how money works. This is how, no. Whenever we encounter something, I explain, kind of like the process of how it goes. And then we just do it. I just jump right in. I give them a quick, like, little tutorial. Because, in my opinion, Dungeons & Dragons is, it's a game. It's supposed to be fun, right? I think my least favorite type of player is a rule lawyer, because you should be able to just sit down and play this game and not be able to have a headache about it. And I believe in that so much so that I think that anyone could just pick up a pair of dice and play. So much so that I've had friends, bring over their boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, and they're sitting there and they're just watching us play. I'm like, you want to join in? And I'll just grab like a card. I'll grab like one of these things of a humanoid character, and I'll throw it at them. I'd be like, here you go. Like, play this character. There you go. And I'll talk them through it, and just like that. And then they'll start being part of it. And it's that's how simple it should be to play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think there should be any hurdles that anyone should jump over for this kind of stuff. So you teach them as you go. You show them, hey, okay, so whenever you want to interact with anyone, say whatever you want to say. I tell them, I'm like, you can say whatever you want to say. I do incorporate consequences, but whatever comes to mind, feel free to talk to them. Feel free to do it, and whatever you want to do, I'll make you roll for it on your character sheet. I pointed like 5 different things when I was trying to show that, but I'll make you roll for it on your ability, score it, and I'll tell you what to roll for. And so, they're like, okay. And then I'm a very animated DM, so I throw my arms up, I use voices, I get loud, I get quiet, and they get the gist of it real quick. But I'm very welcoming, I'm very open. I'm like, come on, I will look really silly. I'll do all these things to show you that it's okay. You can do what you want and don't feel bad. And I encourage anything that they do that helps them play the game. Same goes with combat. I will not explain combat to a new player till their first combat encounter. And I'll be like, all right, this is how combat works. And now, like, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons combat is a bit, I think, overly complex. It's probably the hardest thing, other than like spell slots. It's the hardest thing to explain to a new player. So A lot of times I'm just like, all right, you have your action, you have the, and when they're new, I tend to hold their hand more. I tend to be like, well, you could still, I remind them what they still have. And as they get better and better and better at playing the game, I slowly let go of their hands, like take off the training wheels, and I get them out. But I do explain to them, like, all right, this is an action, this is bonus action, this is reaction, this is movement. Yes, you can attack, move, or you can move, attack, move. You can, if you have extra attack, you can attack, move, as long as you have the ability to do so. You know what I mean? As long as you still have the stamina or action points or however you wanna look at it to do so, that then you can do those things. And same thing goes with like going unconscious. I will not explain, I basically will not explain anything. I won't explain them going unconscious until they have to run into it, until it becomes an obstacle in their path, and then I'll explain it to them. And you know, some players get into it quicker than others, but from what I've done, I've never had someone just be like, oh, this isn't for me. Right? If someone's interested, they really get into it. And I think like the biggest hurdle of Dungeons and Dragons is understanding where I can start. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever like read comic books before, but if you've never read comic books before, and if you have read comic books before, going into a comic book shop to go get your first comic book can be kind of intimidating. It's like, where do I start? You know, these things have been going on for decades. Like, where do I start reading Spider-Man? Where do I? And really, you just pick up a book, you pick up a comic book, and you start reading it. Then you catch on, you figure out, and then next thing you know, you're part of the story, you're part of the culture. And I think that's the same thing with D&D. As a DM, or we have a lot of responsibilities, right? And one of those responsibilities is helping introduce new players into the game, and I think it's really cool that I think the coolest way and most fun way and efficient way to bring in players to the game is really just to show them how easy it is to just drop in, to just pick up some dice and roll them. And honestly, if they've made a character, they're in. You've got them locked in. After that, you know, just give them the step-by-steps of what happens, when it's supposed to happen, and they'll catch on. And the biggest thing you'll have to remember is to be patient. That's really it. You're just gonna have to be patient as a DM, because it's gonna take them time to learn. But you know, tell me some of the ways that you guys have enticed people into playing D&D. I'd love to hear about it, and or tell me your stories of whenever you were a new player and some of the silly stuff or some of the scary things that might have intimidated you. But until next time, YouTube, play nice.